Okay, and welcome back to Eastern Healing. And this time we're going to be talking about the yang meridians and organs. And remember that when we're talking about meridians and organs, we typically refer to them as zong fu instead of yin and yang. Zong being the yin side, and fu, which is what we're talking about this week, being like the seat of government written in the calligraphy, because that government is distributing and managing resources. And that's that primary function of most of the yang organs. So, when you are studying for the test that is going to become available this week, or by the time you're watching this already is available, I would suggest that you study the path of the meridians themselves so that you could identify by looking at them which meridian it is that you are being shown, as well as what the yin-yang correspondence would be between the different meridians and organs and what element they are assigned to. You should also know the primary function of each of the organs, so that if, like from last week, if I said governs respiration and directs the wei qi, you would know that that's the lung, for example. So now that that is out there, let's go ahead and move on. So the yang meridians, I'm going to say that again, the yang organs in TCM, the fu organs, are not seen as central to pathology. Because it's the yin or zong organs that are creating and storing vital substances, those are the ones that are typically indicated in terms of treatment or pathology. However, that doesn't mean that the meridians are less valuable. The meridians between yin and yang are considered to be equally important because they are used in their yin-yang pairings. So even if the issue is in the spleen, you're going to use both the spleen and stomach meridians. So again, even though the yang organs are not typically seen as being as important when it comes to identifying and treating issues, the meridian pathways in the body are used equally because they are used together in their yin-yang pairings. So let's go ahead, having said that, and talk about each one. The first one we're going to talk about is the small intestine. So the small intestine is abbreviated SI. So if you were looking at like SI18 or SI8, you would be looking at a small intestine point. Because yang, left to its own devices, would rise in the body, the yang meridians pull the yang energy down. And it comes down from anatomical position in the Chinese model. So SI1 is on the pinky finger, and it goes down the back of the arm, down the back up here, and around, zags over to the cheek and kind of comes back towards the ear. So you'll notice that the heart, its yin-yang pair, is on the pinky finger as well, but comes down like the anterior yin side, where the small intestine comes down the exterior back or yang side and comes up the back of the arm. So in TCM, the small intestine's duty is to separate the pure from the impure when we eat food. Basically, it's absorbing the pure food chi and whatnot from the food and delivering that to the various yin organs throughout the body. And then impure moves on as waste. That is its anatomical function in our body as well, absorbing nutrients from food. But it's doing this in kind of like a chi way as well. So a defining characteristic of the small intestine meridian when you're looking at it is that it does come to the pinky but goes down the back of the arm, and it has a little zigzaggy bit on the back of the shoulder before it ends in the ear. The next meridian is the large intestine meridian, which is typically abbreviated LI. And the primary function of the large intestine is to eliminate waste, which is anatomically correct as well. But the interesting thing is that many issues that the large intestine would be exhibiting are actually seen to be functions of the spleen in traditional Chinese medicine. So the spleen, even though the intestines separate food and eliminate waste and whatnot, the spleen is seen as the one that is in control of directing that process through the spleen qi. It's the spleen qi that creates that function and controls and directs that function. So, for example, if you had diarrhea, that would be seen to be a spleen qi problem, not necessarily a problem with the large intestine itself. So there you go. The spleen meridian starts up on the pointer finger and comes down the back of the arm, up and kind of zags forward onto the throat before crossing over the midline to end by the opposite side nose. So that's kind of, it's rare for meridians to cross over the midline like that. So that's one distinguishing feature of the spleen, is that it starts on the pointer finger, goes down the back of the arm, crosses over above the mouth, and ends on the opposite side nose, like right by your nose, not on it, next to it. Okay, next is one of my favorite yang organs, the triple burner. Occasionally, this is translated as triple energizer, and it is abbreviated TE or TB, depending on how it's been translated. So TE if it's triple energizer, TB if it's triple burner, and you see both. The triple burner is entirely unique in traditional Chinese medicine, and there is no equivalent in Western medicine. So first you have to remember that they see qi as like the universe is made out of all one thing. It's all made out of qi, and that qi can be diffuse and immaterial, or it can be condensed and firm and solid, right? So the triple burner organ is a diffused qi organ. It is an entire organ that they see as its own valid organ in the body that is only made out of energy and does not have a physical, holdable form. So that can be a little difficult to grasp for Westerners. The immediate knee-jerk reaction I often see is like, oh, it's just a pretend extra organ, except it's not there. So you have to remember, a lot of when they're looking at these meridians and they're looking at these organs and they're thinking about qi, the qi of the body is what accomplishes physical work. And just like a current through the ocean is just water moving through more water, and sometimes it'll be a warm current or a cold current or a zigzaggy current or whatever it is, it all has its own personality, right? So the triple burner is like a system, an organ system that has a swirl of energy that is accomplishing a specific function in their model. It's just not specifically associated with a physical organ. So this, but it still has like the status of an organ. So this is a dispersed immaterial form of qi that is creating this purely energetic organ. And it's called triple burner or triple energizer because it has three distinct parts. The top one is, okay, let me back up. The triple burner overall is responsible for the distribution and penetration of important specialized chi in the body. Do you remember back in the vital substances unit when we talked about the chi of the body? There's like your chi in general, but then there's like your wei chi, your defensive chi, as well as like your nutritive chi and your original chi and your this chi and that chi. So the triple burner is in charge of making sure that that specialized chi is moving smoothly and penetrating and soaking in and really doing its job in the body. So the top, so then it has the three divisions. The top one controls the zong chi, right? Which that was the energy of the chest that powers your lung and heart. Your lungs and heart. So if you did not have zong chi, your heart would not be able to pump, or it would pump weakly, right? Then the middle burner controls your nutritive chi. So like your chi that you create from food chi, and nourishes the organs. And then the lowest one is the wei chi or defensive chi. So as a whole system, the triple burner also controls that deep well of yin and yang, your original chi. So anyway, that's the triple burner. Moving chi and keeping our heart and lungs going and all our specialized fancy stuff. The triple burner meridian starts up on the ring finger and comes down the back of the arm, down up onto the head, and wraps around the ear and ends like right in the ear itself. The next one is the stomach. It is abbreviated as ST, and it is seen as the most important yang organ due to its role in producing post-heaven essence, right? So we eat food, we take the food chi, it mixes up, it creates nutritive chi, it does its thing and creates that post-heaven essence, the vitality we get from eating food. And because the stomach has a role in that, it is seen as like the most important yang organ. So the functions of the stomach are to receive food and hold it down, as well as create the appetite and assist the spleen in the creation of post-heaven essence. A poor appetite would be seen as like having weak stomach chi, but also burping, like a little bit of, it wasn't able to hold the food chi down, so a little bit came up and you burped, or vomiting would be considered a failing of your stomach chi to hold the food down. Now the stomach meridian, as that really important meridian, it starts by your eye and swoops up through your head and then comes down, down, down the front of the body, all the way down, down, down to the second toe. So it's a identifying feature is that swoop. So the top starts by the eye and like swoops up and then comes down the front of the body. There's a few different meridians that come down the front of the body, but the stomach one is the one that starts up on your eye and has that swoop at the top, and then it comes down, down, down to the second toe. All right, the next one is the gallbladder. The gallbladder is also interesting. It is considered one of the extraordinary yang organs, which we will mention more at the end of this lecture module. Now, it's considered extraordinary because it stores bile. The liver creates bile, but then the gallbladder like stores it and releases it, and that's kind of like the function of a yin organ. But because it is storing a substance that is not food. But it's still hollow, and it still has things that just sort of pass through it, and it delivers them, right? So it's still considered a yang organ, just like one of the extraordinary yang organs. Its primary function is to store bile and also to give us like moxie. And what I mean by that is the capacity to make decisions and the courage to act on those. So let's talk about its relationship with the liver. Remember that the liver and gallbladder are both wood organs, right? And they are the yin-yang pair of each other. And the liver houses your ethereal hoon, which is like it houses your hoon, which is like the ethereal soul. And therefore, the liver, when it is functioning properly, helps us be connected to like who we are on the inside and how we want to reach out and grow into the world around us. But just like knowing who you are on the inside and what you wish you could do in the world is not always the same thing as actually doing it. That little separation, that's the relationship between the liver and the gallbladder in an energetic, psychological way, in terms of their less dense physical chores. So the liver, with housing the hoon, is in charge of like internal clarity of your own nature and your understanding of your most authentic self. But it's the gallbladder that's in charge of your decisiveness and your courage to actually do it. So that ability to make a decision, to start action, to express yourself, to just the externalization and decisiveness of action and expressing your own true authentic self. That part is considered the gallbladder part, right? So the meridian of the gallbladder is easily identifiable at a glance because that sucker just zigzags all over the place. It zigzags back and forth across your head. It zigzags from front to back along your torso, and then it comes down the outside of your leg. The leg is more like straight, so it doesn't have as many zigzags on the leg. But in general, you'll see it like going back and forth on the side of the head, down the side of the body, and a little bit back and forth down the outer, like lateral side of the leg. All right, the next one, almost the last one, is the bladder. So the bladder is abbreviated BL, and it has a wide-reaching job in traditional Chinese medicine. Its primary functions are to store and excrete urine, but also to transform fluids throughout the entire body. And so that's kind of where all of its fancy, far-reaching jobs come from, because it's in there transforming fluids throughout your whole body. And so this one spans pretty much the entire length of the back of the body. It starts by the inner canthus of the eye and comes out the top of the head, down the whole back of the body, and at the back it splits in two and has 2 rows going down your back. Those 2 rows continue down to the knee where it comes together again, and then it comes down and ends at the outside of your little toe, your 5th toe. This class is not going to get into influential points and working like how you work with the meridians very much, because this is not a technique class. But one fun fact is that double row, on the back, it corresponds each of those points correspond to another organ. So at the top, it'll have like your lung organ, your heart organ, your pericardium, your triple burner, and those 2 points represent the internal, psychological, emotional aspects of that organ meridian system, and the external, like physical body aspects of that organ system. One little discrepancy that is in your Chapin's handbook that a student pointed out to me was, so normally when you're numbering the points, you come around the head and then go 11, 12, 13 down the Sikhi-Sazon line, down the line, the medial line, the line that goes, it's like right next to the spine. And that you continue numbering that line all the way down until you reach the knee. And that makes the back of the knee point 40. In your Chapin's handbook, and I looked around in a couple other places as well, you see an alternate numbering where you come down the back, and then instead of continuing down the leg, you jump back up and number the back points. So then point 41, starting from point 36 down through like point 40 is on the back, and then the leg and knee are numbered after that. That is much less common. I had to, you'll see in the handout when you're looking at the picture of the meridian that it has like a number like BL43 and then in parentheses 38. And that parentheses number is like the alternate numbering system, but that is much less common. I would really recommend, if you decide to jump off the diving board and really get into meridians and point work, first of all, let me know and I can recommend some textbooks for you because it's complicated stuff, but I would more recommend memorizing the one that's not in parentheses on your handout, where it goes from the back all the way down to the back of the knee, then jumps back up to the shoulder and goes all the way back down and continues down the leg. So that's a bladder meridian. And again, identifying feature is that double row of points in the back. All right, so now we're into some fancy other stuff. And the first fancy other thing is the extraordinary young organs. We already kind of talked about this when we talked about the gallbladder. So obviously there are more organs in the body than just the ones that have been associated with meridians. Just as a note for your general understanding, the remaining body systems almost all fall into what in TCM they call extraordinary young organs, in that they have a function that is more like a yin organ, in that it creates or stores something that is not food. But then they have a shape physically like a yang organ, namely they are hollow. So some examples would be the gallbladder, like we mentioned, but also the testes and uterus are considered extraordinary young organs, because like a uterus is hollow, but it has a function of storing and creating something that is not food, namely a fetus. Also, the testes are considered hollow, but they create sperm. So they are considered extraordinary young organs. They've been named young organs because their physical shape and therefore like the manifestation of their nature is in that yang shape of being hollow and having things that pass through or out of them, but have again that yin function. So fun fact, also the bones, because they store or collect marrow, are considered an extraordinary young organ. And the brain they see as a collection of marrow that helps your heart process information for for the Shen, right? Your consciousness. So so the brain is like so it's almost like the skull itself is a hollow bone, and the marrow of the brain they see as just like a helpful organizational tool for your actual Shen, which lives in your heart. So take that as you will. Okay, and then of course, just to be complete, there is also the governing vessel. So the governing vessel is the yang pair to the conception vessel we talked about before. The conception vessel starts at the genitals and comes up the midline of the body to end at the mouth. Well, the governing vessel is like the governing vessel and conception vessel are both relatively yin. So the conception vessel does also start at the bottom and come up. It starts at the anus and comes up the midline of the back, like up your spine, around the top, and it ends at the top of your mouth, right here. So those two vessels are considered relatively yin compared to the other vessels of the body, which is why they both come upwards in the body. But the governing vessel is considered to be the yang pair to the, like, just compared to themselves. So I hope that makes sense. That one will not be on my test, but just so if you know, if you're looking at acupuncture charts and you see the midline ones. And again, the uses of those two are complex and not taken lightly. That's kind of like pulling out the big guns. So know that they're there, but don't worry about them too much right now. All right, and that is the end of my lecture notes I've got over here. So for again for the test, study the path of the organs so that you can identify them when looking at a picture. Study the yin-yang pairings and elemental correspondences, as well as the primary functions, and all of that can be found in the lectures as well as the handouts. So thank you so much. After we do this test, we'll move on to our third TCM unit, which is applications and other broader TCM related things before wrapping up and moving on to Ayurveda. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you later.